So there's Slither, Splinter, Splice, and I'm sure there's another Spla in there somewhere, but today we're going to review Splinter from 2008. Let's go. Splinter stars Shea Whigham, Jill Wagner, Paulo Costanzo, and is directed by Toby Wilkins. What's up, guys? Welcome to a catalog review. This is a patron request for David B. I reviewed Sleepaway Camp 3 for him last month. This month, I am doing Splinter from 2008. He did say, hey, go easy on it. Maybe not give it a looped in hell. And I said, well, we'll see how it goes. But I can tell you right now, up front, it's not a looped in hell. All right, it's definitely not a looped in hell. But also, David likes when I have Levi in my videos, so why not go ahead and give you a little bit of Levi action right now? And he happened to be just literally laying at my feet. You know, he always is up here when I'm doing my reviews, and sometimes you'll see him like walk. He just walks around. I let him do what he wants, you know. Sometimes I'm deep in thought, and you know, I'm like, Levi, you're not getting in my head, but he does get in my head. I love him very much. I love you, buddy. He's 14 years old, and he still acts like a puppy, and I love him to death. So, David, if you want, I'll show off Levi in every review, okay? This one's for you, David. Say hi, David. He's licking my finger. Jesus. But let's get down to brass tacks. If you are of a certain tier on Patreon or a channel member, either's fine, then you can get a review in your honor. And you guys often give me a lot of interesting movies that I would have never thought about reviewing. So, really cool.
They tracked us somehow.
Get in your car! There's something out there!
But first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. At the beginning of the movie, you have two different couples. You know, you got a couple on the run. They're criminals. One of them is a drug addict, and then Shea Whigham, he is just a criminal. I think he's a thief. I'm not sure, but they're both in trouble with the law, right? And they're on the run, and they come in contact with this pointy object, which turns out to be very deadly and dangerous later in the movie, and we'll get to that. Then the other couple, they're this young, loving couple, Polly and Seth, played by Jill Wagner and Paulo Costanzo. I've definitely seen Paulo Costanzo in other things. He just pops up from time to time. He's always like a good background actor. But what's cool about this too is it's just one location for the most part. It's one of those movies that takes place in a convenience store. I just reviewed, I think last year, Open 24 Hours, which was really good. I really enjoyed doing that one. And then there's a few other convenience store horror movies as well. But I highly recommend Open 24 Hours if you haven't seen it. And check out my review. And speaking of that, by the way, guys, I have been posting a lot of my Drumdums classic reviews that I've done through the years because I've been doing this 9 years. And a lot of times I'll get you guys asking me, hey, have you reviewed this? Have you reviewed that? And I figured this is a good way to kind of get that stuff going in the algorithm again, so it kind of pops up in your suggested feed. So let me know if it does. But back to this movie, it is cool that each character has their own personality, even if two of them are criminals. One of them happens to be the drug addict, and she's paranoid all the time. And then Shea Whigham, who plays Dennis, he's clearly the guy that's in charge, but he's also dangerous. You definitely don't want to cross him. And then the innocent couple, Polly and Seth, they're just normal, everyday people. But one thing that's cool is like Seth, Dennis makes this joke at him, and he calls him, he's got CDS disease, can't do shit. There's a lot of guys like this, that they don't have mechanical abilities, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people, they just don't like doing mechanical things, right? But they're great at other things. They're actually probably book smart, you know, and that does play into this because he is a medical student. He's got his PhD, or he's working on his PhD, and that comes in handy later in the movie. And I think this movie does a great job of making these characters realize their importance, and that just because you are mechanical doesn't mean that you are the be-all, end-all in terms of survivability. And Polly, she's just like common sense smart. She constantly thinks on her feet, and she's passionate. But we're talking about horror here. The movie's called Splinter, and this is irresistible. It's a virus type movie. It's a kind of a parasite type movie. And basically, if you come in contact and you get like a splinter in your finger, or if these splinters get a hold of you, then kind of like The Thing, you become that Splinter entity. And you become very, very deadly. And guys, I'm going to go into some mild spoilers in this because it kind of gets me through the review. It's a 2008 movie, so I'd say if you don't want to know anymore, then you might want to check out and just go check it. It's on Amazon Prime right now, so you can watch it if you're a Prime member. This is really a more about the journey than this isn't like a twist type movie anyway, right? You are expecting characters to be infected by this thing, okay? So anyway, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Dennis's girlfriend, Lacey, who is the drug addict, she is the first victim of these Splinter creatures, right? And once she gets infected, this is where it really goes for broke in terms of like practical effects. I have to applaud the team that did this movie because you could tell that they were working on a very low budget. And this is where creativity in terms of not just the effects themselves, but also the camera movements. Because you can make a practical effect, but if you don't light it right, if you don't move the camera in the right direction, you know, then it can still come off looking silly and fake. As a matter of fact, these things can be like chopped and dismembered and still be coming at you. And so there's this section where there's this hand, Evil Dead 2 style, is coming at the victims. And you can tell that they had to be very careful about how they portrayed that because it could come off really silly. But I think they do a really good job. And I always praise movies that use, I'd say mostly practical effects. I think there's a little bit of CGI when they show like the metabolism and the blood and all that stuff. But for the most part, it's a practical effects feast. Matter of fact, I just said feast. I just watched Feast a couple years ago. And that movie benefits in the same way, really. Now, there is a really cool scene with a police officer that comes by, and she's there to help the victims. But they're already too far into it at this point, and they're kind of needing each other because, you know, the drug addict victim, she's already one of the creatures. So they're telling the cop, hey, you need to go get help, okay? You're about to be really fucked. And, you know, it just adds great tension to the movie because you, as the audience, you're like screaming at the cop, you know, save yourself. But of course she doesn't, and she gets attacked by one of the creatures, and her body just gets ripped in half. Automatically, she is, I'm going to call it splinterized, and, you know, her body like reconjoins itself. So some really gnarly, cool effects in this. Now, this movie does have that moment where they're studying the creature, they're figuring out how they can beat it. You have to have, I guess, the book smart character of Seth in this because he figures out that if we get our body temperature below a certain level, then they won't be able to detect us. And by the way, the golden rule in any horror movie is if they say maybe, that means yes, okay? Maybe always means yes. If somebody coughs, that means they're dead. You know, there's certain little fun rules along the way in any horror movie that we're like, oh, yep, that's it, yeah. If they say maybe, that means yeah. Then that, from a script standpoint, that means it's in play and that's how they could beat them. It does get a little silly. You know, he is literally packing his body with ice bags. And the silly part is when he's going to the car and he's like literally like dropping the ice bag, you know, and it's like spilling out, right? So they're trying to get it to where, oh God, his body heat's starting to get up. And if it gets up to a certain level, so it's like right down to the wire. They constantly do this in horror movies. It's not really a dig. It's just a trope, right? And tropes aren't always bad. Sometimes we need them. But I gotta say, if you're looking for just a fun, small scale, low budget little horror movie that definitely takes advantage of every bit of creativity it can to sell itself, I'd say check out Splinter for sure. I had never heard of this movie before this, and I got it confused with so many other movies that start with SPL or SL. And I just reviewed Slither last year, but this one's quite fun. I'll give it a high humdrum. You know, it is short; it's like 80 minutes, but you know, it does what it needs to do, and it's got some pretty gruesome scenes in it. You know, it's definitely a horror movie. So let me know your thoughts on Splinter in the comments. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow my Drumdums on all my socials, support me on Patreon, become a channel member. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Drumdum out.